The rescue she didn't want. The desert sun was burning hot. The wind carried sand across the wide, empty land. Leora, a high-born alien girl from the noble house of Velthara, was tied to the back of a rusty slave cart. Her silver robes were torn. Her purple skin was bruised. Her golden eyes, once proud, were now full of anger and fear. The desert raiders laughed as they pulled her along. They had ambushed her royal convoy, killed her guards, and taken her prisoner. They didn't care she was royalty. To them, she was just another prize to sell. She bit her lip and kept quiet. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her cry. But deep inside, she was scared. In the distance, behind a broken hill, a lone figure watched through dusty binoculars. Jacob, a human traveler and ex-soldier from Earth, saw the alien girl being dragged by the raiders. He was resting in the desert after leaving a mercenary job on a nearby moon. He didn't plan to get involved. It wasn't his fight, but then he saw her eyes. Even from far away, he could tell. She didn't belong there. She was no criminal. She was royalty, or maybe something even more important. Jacob sighed. Just one more mess, he muttered. He packed his gear, picked up his old blaster, and moved like a ghost through the sand. That night, the raiders made camp near an old rock wall. They drank, laughed, and ignored Leora. She was tied to a wooden post, her hands bound behind her back. She looked up at the stars and whispered, "Someone, help me." Suddenly, one of the guards fell without a sound. Then another. A shadow moved between the tents, silent, fast. Then everything went loud. Blaster fire, screams, confusion. Leora's eyes widened as she saw a tall man in dark armor run into the camp. He shot with deadly skill. One shot, one fall. He didn't miss. The raiders tried to fight back, but they were no match. Within minutes, the camp was silent. Jacob walked through the smoke, breathing heavily. He looked around and saw her, still tied, still watching. He stepped closer. Leora stared at him. "Who are you?" "No time." "We have to go," Jacob said, kneeling to cut her ropes. She pulled back. "Don't touch me." "I just saved you," he said, confused. "I didn't ask you to," she snapped. He frowned. "Look, you want to die here? Fine. But I'm leaving." He turned away. She hesitated. She hated this human, his rude tone, his rough touch. But she didn't want to stay with dead raiders either. "Wait," she said quietly. Jacob didn't look back. "Then move." They walked through the cold desert night. Leora followed behind him, limping from her injuries. He offered to carry her once. She glared and refused. "Touch me again and I'll rip your hand off," she said sharply. "Fine by me," he muttered. After an hour, they found a small cave to rest. Jacob made a small fire. He placed his jacket on a rock beside her. "You look cold," he said. "I'm not," he shrugged. "Suit yourself." He lay down and closed his eyes. Within minutes, he was asleep. Leora sat alone. Her arms were shaking. The cold night air was unforgiving. She stared at the jacket for a long time. Then, slowly, quietly, she reached for it and pulled it around herself. It smelled of dust and fire. But it was warm. She glanced at Jacob. His face was calm. He slept like a soldier, always ready. She whispered, "Why did you really save me?" He didn't answer. He was already dreaming. Morning came with silence. Leora stepped out of the cave, the jacket still around her. She looked at the horizon, empty desert in all directions. Jacob woke up and stood beside her. "We move at sunrise," he said. She didn't argue this time, but she couldn't stop thinking about that moment. The way he looked at her, not like a prize, not like royalty, but just like a person. And even though she hated him for touching her, a strange feeling was growing in her chest. Was it gratitude or something more dangerous? She didn't know yet, but she would find out soon. The desert wind howled again as Jacob and Leora began walking at sunrise. He walked ahead, silent and focused. She followed several steps behind, still wearing his jacket. But the silence between them was loud. Jacob had offered to help her walk, but she had refused with a glare. Her pride was stronger than her pain. Hours passed. The heat returned. Leora's lips were dry and her feet ached. Her royal shoes had been taken by the raiders, and now she walked barefoot on burning sand. She didn't complain, not because it didn't hurt, but because she would never show weakness in front of a human. Jacob noticed her limp. Her steps were slower. Her breath was shaky. "We'll rest soon," he said without turning around. "I didn't ask," she replied coldly. Jacob stopped and looked back. "Right. You never ask, even when you need help." "I don't need you," she snapped. He stared at her for a moment. "Fine. Then don't fall behind." He turned and kept walking. They reached a dry canyon by noon. Jacob found a spot with shade and sat down. He tossed her a water bottle. She looked at it like it was poison. "Drink," he said. She didn't move. Jacob raised an eyebrow. "Do highborn aliens not need water?" Leora snatched the bottle from him and took a small sip. The water was warm and tasteless, but to her dry throat it felt like life. She didn't thank him. Jacob leaned back, looking up at the sky. "You know, most people say thank you when they're rescued." "I didn't ask to be rescued," she said again. Jacob chuckled bitterly. "Right, I forgot. Next time I'll let the raiders keep you." She glared at him. "I am the daughter of Grand Lord Thalviar. You dare speak to me like that?" Jacob stood up slowly and walked closer. His eyes were calm but serious. "I don't care who your father is. Out here, your title means nothing. Out here, you either survive or you don't." She blinked. No one had ever spoken to her like that. "Why are you helping me then?" she asked. Jacob looked away. "I don't like bullies." As night returned, the temperature dropped fast. They made another small camp near the canyon wall. Jacob built the fire. Leora sat away from him, arms crossed. This time, she didn't refuse the food he offered. She ate in silence. "Where are you going?" she asked quietly. "North. There's a trading post 2 days from here," he replied. "You'll be safe there. And after that, I move on." "To where?" "Wherever someone needs help." Leora studied his face in the firelight. He looked tired, older than he should. Not because of age, but because of things he had seen, things he never spoke of. "You're not like other humans," she said. He shrugged. "Most people say that. That's not a compliment. Didn't ask for one." Later that night, Jacob was sharpening a small blade. Leora sat watching the fire. Her voice broke the silence again. "Do you always live like this?" "Like what?" "Wandering, fighting, sleeping in dirt." Jacob paused, then answered, "It's better than what I used to be." She frowned. "What were you before?" He didn't answer right away. Then he said softly, "A soldier, a tool, someone who followed orders, even bad ones." There was a deep sadness in his voice. Leora looked at him for a long moment. "I'm sorry," she said. Jacob looked up, surprised. Didn't expect that from a princess. "I'm not just a princess," she whispered. "I'm someone who's never been outside palace walls, someone who never met real danger, until now." The fire crackled. Jacob said nothing, but he handed her a blanket. She accepted it this time, without a single complaint. Later, she couldn't sleep. She stared at the stars above the desert sky. Then, without meaning to, she whispered, "Why did you really save me?" Jacob, eyes closed, answered from the shadows, "Because my sister died when no one helped her." Leora felt her chest tighten. He added, "I couldn't save her, but maybe I can save someone else." Silence followed. She turned her head and looked at him. He was already asleep again. She closed her eyes. For the first time since the raiders attacked, she didn't feel alone, and she didn't know what scared her more, the memory of the desert, or the growing warmth she felt for the human who had touched her heart. The desert sky turned orange as morning came again. Leora was the first to wake. She stepped out of the cave and stood quietly, watching the sunrise. Something inside her had changed. She didn't know when it started. Maybe it was the night she wore his jacket. Maybe it was when she learned about his sister. Or maybe it was how he didn't treat her like a fragile jewel, but like someone strong enough to survive. She didn't say it out loud. Not yet. Jacob stepped out behind her, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Ready to move?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes. No fighting, no insults. Just a simple word." Jacob raised an eyebrow but didn't question it. He packed their gear and they moved on. But peace never lasts long in the wild parts of the galaxy. Later that day they reached a narrow canyon. The rocks were high, the path tight. Jacob slowed down. His instincts itched. Leora felt it too. Something in the air had shifted. They weren't alone. Suddenly a sharp sound echoed from above. Thwip! Jacob shoved Leora to the ground just in time. A metal spear slammed into the rock beside them. "Ambush!" he shouted. 4 raiders jumped down from the cliffs, yelling in their alien tongue. These weren't just any raiders. They wore black armor and bone masks, the same ones who had taken Leora days ago. "They tracked us," Jacob muttered, pulling out his knife and blaster. Leora froze. Her heart pounded. She saw one of them, the leader. He was the one who chained her. He grinned through his bone mask. "The princess returns to us." Jacob fired first. The battle was fast and brutal. Blasts lit up the canyon. Jacob moved like a shadow, dodging and striking, but there were too many. One raider grabbed Leora from behind. She screamed and struggled. The leader stepped forward with a whip. "She belongs to us," he growled. Before the whip could strike her, Jacob charged. He tackled the raider, slamming him into a rock wall. Blood splattered. Jacob's arm was cut, but he didn't stop. He grabbed Leora's hand and pulled her into a side tunnel. "This way!" he shouted. They ran. The path twisted through the rocks. Behind them, angry shouts grew louder. Leora couldn't keep up. Her leg gave out. She stumbled and fell. Jacob turned back, lifted her up without a word, and carried her. She didn't protest this time. She held onto him tightly, her head pressed to his chest. She could hear his heart, fast and strong. They reached the end of the tunnel. The light blinded them. Then, silence. No one followed. Jacob put her down and fell to his knees, breathing hard. Leora looked at him. His shirt was torn, blood staining his side. "You're hurt," she said, kneeling beside him. "It's not deep," he grunted. She reached out and, for the first time, touched him. Gently, not with anger. She pressed cloth to his wound. He winced but didn't stop her. "I was useless back there," she said softly. "No," Jacob said. "You didn't freeze. You ran. You survived." She looked into his eyes. "You saved me again." He gave a weak smile. "You're getting used to it." A small laugh escaped her lips, the first laugh in days. That night they made a new camp in a safer place. Leora stayed close to Jacob, helping him with his wound. She even made the fire while he rested. She remembered how she had once slapped his hand for touching her. Now she was placing her hands over his bandages with care. "What happens when we reach the trading post?" she asked. "You'll go home," he said. "And you?" "I keep moving." "Why?" Jacob didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Because I don't belong anywhere." Leora was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Maybe you do now." Jacob looked at her. "What does that mean?" She didn't answer. She just smiled, a sad, confused smile, because even she didn't know yet what her heart was trying to say. They reached the edge of the desert the next day. The land turned rocky. Small buildings appeared, made of metal and stone, old but still standing. The trading post sat between two broken cliffs guarded by rough alien mercenaries and dusty travelers. Leora's golden eyes scanned the place. She hadn't seen a town since her capture. The flags of different species flapped in the wind, and the smell of smoke and cooked meat filled the air. Jacob walked ahead as usual. His arm was still wrapped, his steps slower now. Leora followed, but something inside her felt tight. This was where they would separate. She would return to her world. He would disappear. And yet, she wasn't ready to let go. At the main gate, a scanner beeped as they entered. One of the guards, a tall insectoid alien, raised a blaster. "Identify yourselves." Before Jacob could speak, another voice shouted from behind. "That's her. The missing royal." A patrol unit rushed forward. They wore shiny red armor, official guards of the Veltharan royal house. Leora stiffened. Her old world had come to claim her. The captain bowed low. "Lady Leora, we've searched across 4 systems. Thank the stars you're alive." She didn't speak. She looked at Jacob, standing beside her like a quiet shadow. One guard stepped forward and blocked Jacob. "This one is not needed." Leora opened her mouth but hesitated. Her words froze. Jacob stepped back. He didn't fight. He only looked at her once, with tired eyes, and nodded. "I guess this is it," he said quietly. Leora wanted to say something, but she stayed silent. The guards surrounded her. She was taken away, and the human who had saved her life twice walked off without a single word of thanks. The palace was brighter than she remembered. Silk robes, perfumed halls, soft voices. Everything was clean, proper, noble, but it all felt wrong now. Leora sat in her room, staring out the window. She was safe. She was home, but her heart wasn't. A servant entered. "Your father awaits you in the Great Hall." Leora nodded and followed. Grand Lord Thalaviar stood tall and proud on the silver throne. His eyes, sharp like daggers, studied her. "You've returned," he said. "I was captured," she replied. "Yes. And now you will do your duty. You will marry the heir of House Drevos. It is time to unite our bloodlines." Leora's lips parted. "So soon? Everything is arranged. You will forget the past. Your pain is over." But Leora didn't feel peace. She felt a strange emptiness. Her fingers still remembered the feel of rough cloth, the warmth of a campfire, the steady heartbeat of a human who never bowed. The next day, a celebration was held. Leora sat beside her noble suitor, a cold, perfect man with silver skin and no emotion. He smiled only when nobles were watching. His hand felt like metal. Whispers filled the hall. "They say a human saved her." Impossible. "She's just trying to avoid the wedding." Leora couldn't take it anymore. She stood suddenly. The music stopped. The guests stared. Her voice rang clear. "I will not marry him." The hall went silent. Thalviar's eyes narrowed. "You bring shame to our name." "I bring truth," she said. "And I choose my own future." Her suitor rose in anger. "Is this because of that human mongrel?" Leora didn't answer with words. She simply turned and walked out of the hall, her royal robe trailing behind her like a broken chain. That night, she stood alone on the balcony, dressed in simple travel clothes. She looked at her reflection in the window, not a royal heir, just a girl who had felt something real, far from gold and lies. A guard approached. "My lady, where will you go?" She replied softly, "To repay a debt. One I should have paid with more than silence." The guard stepped aside. She slipped into the night without a crown, without guards. Only her memories and a name she couldn't forget. Jacob. Leora stood in the dusty town square of the trading post, dressed like a traveler now. No crown, no silk, just a long cloak, worn boots, and the fire of purpose in her heart. But the world she had left Jacob in had already moved on. She had returned here alone, hoping to find him. Hoping to say the words she should have spoken before. "Thank you, I'm sorry, please don't go." But when she asked around, no one had seen him in days. He left, said an old alien woman running a fruit stall, took a ship heading toward the eastern moons, said there was trouble in the refugee colonies. Leora's heart sank. She had been too slow. She sat in the corner of a noisy tavern, nursing a cup of warm root tea. Alien travelers came and went, laughing and shouting, but all she could hear was silence. Memories played in her mind. Jacob shielding her from raiders, Jacob giving her his jacket, Jacob bleeding as he carried her through the canyon. She had been too proud, too stubborn. She had looked into his eyes and seen something real and walked away anyway. Now he was gone. A young boy approached her table, a half-human orphan, maybe 10 years old. He wore torn clothes but had bright eyes. "You're the lady who came back looking for the human, right?" She looked up. "You know him?" He nodded. "Yeah. He gave me food last week, said to stay out of trouble. He fixed my sister's broken leg." Leora's eyes softened. "Do you know where he went?" The boy pointed toward the sky. "Sector 8, colony ruins. Lots of people hurt there. He said they needed him more than this place did." Leora dropped a few credits into the boy's hand. "Thank you." "Are you going to marry him?" the boy asked suddenly. She paused. "I don't know," she said quietly, "but I want to tell him something important before someone else does." She booked the next cargo ship heading to the colony ruins. The journey took 2 days. When she stepped off the ramp, the air was thick with smoke and dust. The ruins of the colony were scattered across the ground, buildings broken, tents made from shipwreck pieces. She walked among the wounded and the working. There he was. Jacob, wearing old armor, sleeves rolled up, blood on his gloves, but not his own. He was carrying a child in one arm and guiding a limping alien elder with the other. He looked tired, older, but still the same man. Her heart skipped. She stood frozen. He saw her, but his face didn't light up. He stared for a second, then looked away and kept walking. She found him later, alone, washing blood from his hands at a water pump. "I came to find you," she said softly. He didn't turn around. "Why?" "Because I made a mistake." Silence. She stepped closer. "I should have spoken up. I should have told them to treat you with respect. I should have said thank you. I should have." "You didn't," he said flatly. Her voice shook. "I was afraid." "Of what?" "Of what I felt," she whispered. Now he turned. "You're royalty. I'm just a human, a broken one." She looked into his eyes, filled with pain and distance. "You're more than that to me," she said. "You saved me. You saw me. Not as a princess, but as a person." He said nothing. "I left something behind in that desert," she continued. "Not just pride, not just fear. I left you, and I regret it every day." Jacob looked down. "I don't belong in your world," he said. "Then maybe," she replied, stepping closer. "I belong in yours." That night they sat beside the fire just like before. No palace, no guards, just starlight and quiet. She held out his old jacket, cleaned and folded. "I kept it," she said, "even when I returned home." He smiled faintly. "It suits you. More than silk." She reached for his hand. "I'm not asking for promises, I just want to stay near you for now." He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time since she left, he believed her. The news of Leora's reappearance in the refugee colony spread like fire across the systems. A high-born princess, walking through wreckage in dusty boots, dressed like a commoner tending to wounded aliens beside a human. It was unthinkable. Shameful, some said. Inspiring, others whispered. Back on Velthara, the palace was in chaos. "She's lost her mind," shouted Lord Thalviar. "No," said his advisor quietly. "She may have found it." The Royal Council demanded her return. A ship was sent. Orders were clear. Bring the princess home before the marriage contract collapsed. But Leora had made her decision. Jacob had kept his distance the past few days. He worked hard, moving supplies, building shelters, treating the injured. Leora worked beside him, never leaving but never pushing either. She didn't ask him for affection. She didn't beg for closeness. She just stayed. She wrapped bandages. She carried heavy crates. She held crying children. And every night she sat beside the fire without a word. Until he finally spoke. "You're not pretending, are you?" She looked at him. "I was raised behind golden walls, but I never felt alive until I was beside you. In a cave. In danger. In silence." Jacob stared into the flames. "They'll come for you." "I know," she said. "And if you go back, I won't." His eyes narrowed. "Then what happens? Now?" She stood up slowly, looked at the camp, then at the stars above. "Now, I speak." 2 days later, Leora stood at the center of the colony, on a raised platform made from old ship parts. Refugees gathered around, curious. Word had spread that the princess was going to make a speech. Jacob stood near the edge, arms crossed, silent. Leora took a deep breath. Her voice was soft at first, but steady. "I am Leora of House Velthara, and I was born into a world of power, safety, and lies." Gasps moved through the crowd. "I was told humans were beneath us. I believed that, until a human saved my life. Twice." She looked at Jacob, but he didn't move. I repaid his kindness with silence. I left him without thanks. I wore my pride like a crown. But I was wrong. Her voice grew stronger. The day I left him behind, I lost myself. So I returned, not as a princess, but as a woman who finally understands what honor means. Whispers turned into applause. Some stared in disbelief. Others nodded slowly. Then the royal shuttle landed. Guards stepped out, dressed in gold armor. Her father's voice echoed from a transmission drone. "Leora, enough of this. You will come home now." She stepped forward. "No, father." Shock. She raised her chin. "I will not marry the man you chose. I will not return to a cage of diamonds. My place is here, helping those who have no voice." The guards hesitated. "I choose to walk beside the man who showed me what courage looks like." All eyes turned to Jacob. He blinked. "Wait, what?" Leora stepped down, walking toward him. "You told me once I didn't ask for help, so now I'm asking." She held out her hand. "Let me stay. Let me help you. Let me be with you." Jacob looked at her hand, then her face. For the first time, she wasn't hiding anything, no pride, no titles, just truth. He took her hand, and the crowd erupted. Later that night, they sat quietly by the fire again, just like before. But this time, something was different. He leaned against her shoulder. She didn't move away. He whispered, "You know, what you just did will start a galactic scandal, right?" She smiled. "Let it." He laughed softly. She added, "You said once that you don't belong anywhere. But you're wrong." He looked at her. "You belong with me." And in that moment, he believed her. The colony was quiet under the silver night sky. The fires burned low and the stars above shimmered like the eyes of ancient gods watching a forgotten world. Leora sat alone by the central fire, her cloak wrapped around her shoulders, her gaze lost in the flickering flames. It had been 3 days since her public stand, 3 days since she turned her back on the crown, the palace, and everything she once thought mattered. And yet she didn't regret it, not even for a second. But there was one thing still left unsettled. Jacob. He hadn't spoken much since the speech. He still worked beside her, helped her carry supplies, fixed broken machines, and trained the younger refugees in survival. But he was quiet, more than usual. Leora could feel the distance. It wasn't anger. It wasn't coldness. It was something deeper, a wound not yet closed. Tonight, she was ready to close it. She stood, took a deep breath, and walked toward the edge of the colony. She found him sitting on an overturned crate, sharpening a tool under the moonlight. His jacket was off and his sleeves were rolled up. His scars caught the light, marks from battles on many planets. She sat beside him without a word. For a long time he said nothing. Only the sound of metal scraping metal. Then he spoke. "You should be back in your palace." She didn't respond right away. Instead, she looked at him and said softly, "I'm right where I'm supposed to be." He kept sharpening. Leora watched him, then asked, "Do you want me to leave?" He stopped, lowered the blade, and looked at her. His voice was calm but heavy. "I don't want you to leave. I want to believe that you won't." Her eyes filled with pain. "I deserve that." Jacob stood and walked a few steps, staring out at the cracked horizon. "I've seen people run when things get hard," he said. "I've seen people lie to survive, but you were the first person I ever met who looked at me like I mattered and still walked away." "I know," she whispered. "I don't blame you. You were raised in a world I don't understand. And I'm not easy to be around." She walked toward him. "That's not why I left." "Then why?" he asked, turning to face her. "Because I was afraid," she said, her voice trembling. "Not of you, but of what I felt when I was near you. I'd never felt that way before, not with anyone." She placed her hand over her heart. "When you held me in that canyon, when you gave me your jacket, when you bled for me without asking for anything, I didn't feel like a princess anymore. I felt like a person, a real person, and that scared me." Jacob's expression softened. "I never wanted to be saved like that," she said. "But I'm glad it was you." He stepped closer. "And I never expected to care," he replied, "but I do." Leora reached for his hand. "I didn't just come back to help the colony," she said. "I came back for you. Because I love you, Jacob." The words hung in the air. Jacob looked at her, his jaw tight, his heart racing. Then he let out a soft breath. "I love you too," he said. He stepped forward, wrapped his arms around her, and held her like he never wanted to let go again. They stayed like that under the stars for a long time. Later, back at the fire, Leora leaned her head on his shoulder. "I don't know what our future looks like," she said. "Neither do I," he replied, "but we'll figure it out together." The next morning, they stood side by side as colony leaders gathered. The rebuilding had begun. There were plans for clean water, food stations, and better defense. Jacob was asked to train new guards. Leora was asked to represent the colony in galactic councils. She smiled and said, "Only if I can still wash dishes sometimes." Everyone laughed. That afternoon, a royal message arrived from her father. He demanded her return again. This time she answered him herself. "Father," she said through the hollow call, "I am no longer your bargaining chip. If you wish to speak, speak to me as an equal, or not at all." He said nothing, then ended the call. She felt free. Weeks turned to months. Jacob and Leora worked side by side, not just building homes, but building something neither of them had, ever had. A real life. A shared life. Sometimes it was hard, sometimes they fought, but they always came back to the fire. One night, Jacob looked at her across the flames. "I never thought someone like you would ever fall for someone like me." She smiled. "Then it's a good thing I'm not the girl I used to be." He reached into his jacket and pulled out something small, a ring made from salvaged starship metal shaped with care. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't royal, it was real. He offered it to her. "Will you stay?" "Not because you have to, but because you want to." Leora took the ring and placed it on her finger. "I stayed long ago," she said. "It just took me time to admit it." They kissed, soft and slow, under the same stars that had once watched her cry. This time they smiled back.